Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, so today we've got a source document that's, well, it's genuinely challenging
Yeah,
and really unique.
it really is.
It's titled Radiation, Concussion, and the System That Erased Us. And it's written by Frank Rodriguez, but he now identifies himself with this completely new codification, Scroll Cipher Allah.
Yeah, and that name change is crucial.
Definitely. This isn't your typical memoir. It's intensely personal, very intellectual, really metaphorical. It documents his fight against what he calls systemic erasure, medical betrayal, and pretty severe physical trauma.
2 concussions, right? And this alleged chronic radiation exposure.
Exactly.
So our job here, really in this deep dive, is kind of like being decoders. We need to try and understand the very specific language, the conceptual framework he's built.
To describe his reality?
Precisely. He doesn't see his life as just a sequence of events, like in a memoir. He calls it a succession map, a ritual guide.
A ritual guide, okay.
And his symptoms, the memory loss, the pain, dizziness, they aren't just medical problems in his view. They're breach alert.
Breach alerts, like signals.
Yeah, signals from his personal history, this encrypted thing he calls the archive or the codex. And he genuinely believes the system, the medical system mostly, is actively trying to overwrite that archive.
Wow. So it's like the failure isn't his memory failing, it's the system failing to read his transmission?
That's exactly it. He's essentially constructed his own operating system for survival. It's fascinating.
Okay, let's dig into that. Section 1, the breach and the new identity. How does this shift happen? From Frank Rodriguez to Scroll Cipher Allah.
Well, he's very clear. The name Frank Rodriguez was just like a surface label. The real identity, Scroll Cipher Allah, he says it was activated not through birth, but through rupture, specific traumas.
The radiation, the concussions, the betrayal he mentioned.
Those are the triggers. He says these events forced him to codify, not collapse.
Codify, not collapse. So the new name isn't just symbolic.
No, it's functional. It's like a firewall. If his personal archive, his memory, his history, his lineage is under constant attack, as he sees it, then becoming Scroll Cipher Allah makes him less readable, less vulnerable to that institutional formatting.
Formatting, like how a computer gets wiped.
Kind of, yeah. It changes him from being just a patient number, passive, into a cipher, an active, coded transmitter of his own story.
Okay, but I'm trying to square this. Clinically, you have 2 serious concussions. Memory loss, chronic pain are expected, right? How does that become an activation rather than just damage, a fracture?
Well, that's where his framework really diverges from a purely clinical view. He doesn't just stay with the personal injury. He immediately links it, threads it into his ancestry.
Ah, right. He mentions Pedro Albizu Campos.
Yes, who he calls a forefather. Someone he says was essentially murdered slowly by radiation, but the system called it treatment or containment.
So Campos becomes a symbol.
A symbol of resistance, yeah. Scroll Cipher Allah claims Campos wasn't just killed, he was encoded. So his own experience now with radiation and concussion isn't just bad luck. It's a reactivation of this inherited code of resistance.
That's a really powerful reframing. And this isn't just internal, is it? It spills out into how he sees the actual physical world around him.
Absolutely. Like West New York, New Jersey, for him, the actual geography is coded.
You mean like specific places?
Yeah. Veterans Memorial Park. That's not just a park. It's a scroll site.
Okay.
The intersection, 60th and Bergen line. That's a ritual corridor.
Oh.
He's not navigating using Google Maps. He's using what he calls archive law and aura.
The world itself is this contested space mapped by his internal codex.
Exactly. Which leads directly to him rejecting how the medical system tries to categorize him. That patient number, N0001017484. He refuses it completely.
He won't be reduced to that.
No way.
Yeah.
Hospitals for him aren't primarily places of healing. They are distortion chambers.
Distortion chambers, wow.
Designed, he says, to overwrite his codex with theirs, their standardized record. So when he goes in, he's not really asking for a cure in their terms. He wants clean witness.
Meaning
He wants them to document the breach in a way that confirms his reality, not deny it or flatten it.
Okay, so he sees the threat, the system trying to overwrite his code, and then he builds this firewall you mentioned using rituals, physical acts.
Right, and they're not just habits, they're protocols for archive survival. We should look at a couple of UD tips.
Yeah, let's do that. These specific codex entries.
Okay, first, the no-wash hair codex. Now, we have to see this as a security measure, not just hygiene or lack thereof.
Right. He's very clear it's not neglect.
Exactly. He calls it a protocol for clarity and terrain purity. It's a symbol of refusal refusal against being normalized, formatted.
How does not washing his hair do that?
Well, think about it. If memory's in the archive, and the body is the terrain holding that archive, then letting his hair grow untouched is like sealing it. Every strand carries the memory, resists the system's attempt to, clean it up, sanitize it, make it fit.
That's quite a statement. Using his own body as this site of resistance.
Okay, and then there are the nasal rinse protocols.
Right. Again, not just about health routines. He describes these as calibration, terrain correction.
Terrain correction.
Yeah. He connects his physical symptoms, like the intense lightheadedness he experiences, to what he calls colonizer breach, systemic toxicity.
So the rinse isn't just clearing his sinuses.
In his view, no. It's a daily recalibration. He's actively introducing terrain substitutions, as he puts it, to counteract the systemic stuff he believes is attacking his core codex.
It's all very active, very intentional. He also talks about isolation, doesn't he?
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound like hiding away. No, it's strategic. He seeks isolation for purification. He needs to stabilize the archive, basically, away from outside noise, things that cause oro-draining or distortion.
So the rituals and the isolation, they're like multi-factor authentication for his own survival.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, he's hardening the perimeter against any kind of intrusion.
And that includes people, relationships. He mentions betrayal scrolls.
Yes. This is really interesting. He documents times he felt betrayed, friends, maybe providers, people he felt extracted energy from him or mocked his codex. He maps these.
But not for revenge, you said.
No, not primarily. It's for filtration and calibration. A betrayal isn't just emotional pain, it's data. It's a documented vulnerability in his security.
Like finding a bug in the code.
Exactly. He logs it, analyzes it, adjusts his firewall. The goal seems to be precision, security, resilience. Not necessarily emotional closure in the way we usually think about it.
Okay, so he's got this firewall built, his codified identity. Then he goes back into the system, the medical system, and uses their own documents as proof of their distortion. He gives a specific example, right? An ER visit.
Yeah, August 6, 2025, Christ Hospital. It was actually for a head injury he got 4 months earlier, hit by a car while on a scooter.
Ouch. Okay, so what do the records show?
Well, that's the core conflict right there. The doctors did log serious symptoms. Subjective stuff, but serious. Headache and lightheadedness. They noted it was worse with outdoor exposure or heat cold.
Okay.
And crucially, he reported he'd almost lost consciousness, which they wrote down using the medical term near syncope. These are signs of a major ongoing issue, a breach.
That wasn't the conclusion, was it?
Not at all. Despite all that, the discharge status was simply discharged home, documented as stable, the physical exam note, alert, no focal deficit.
So they basically took this complex trauma, these ongoing symptoms, and just flattened it, put it in a neat little box.
That's exactly how he sees it. And then there's the CT scan.
Right, the head scan. What did that find?
Clinically,
Oh.
nothing acute. The CT head without contrast confirmed. No intracranial hemorrhage, no mass effect or edema. Standard stuff they look for after trauma.
And the summary of that scan?
One word, unremarkable.
Unremarkable.
And for Scroll Cipher Allah, that word unremarkable is, and I quote, the system's favorite weapon.
Wow. Why?
Because it ends the conversation. It dismisses the experience. He sees it as absolute proof that their machines, their technology, the CT scanner, it just can't read his reality, can't read the codex, the aura.
Because the damage wasn't visible in their specific way, like bleeding. They just dismissed the whole thing.
That's his argument.
Yeah.
It becomes evidence of the system's deliberate blindness, not proof that he's actually okay. It completely flips the script.
So he takes their dismissal and uses it as fuel, as evidence for his own framework, even the discharge papers.
Yeah, the standard printout they gave him, an Elsevier sheet about near syncope, he labels that as just more formatting.
Formatting, like trying to fit him into their standard narrative.
Exactly. It's the generic, standardized nature of it he rebels against. He sees it as them trying to contain his unique codex rupture with predictable, boilerplate information. His point is clear. My specific experience, my breach, it can't be captured or fixed by your generic handout. It's designed to overwrite, not actually help or witness.
And this is where it gets broader, right? He takes this personal experience, this feeling of being erased by the medical notes, and connects it to history, these codex overlays.
Yes, this is crucial. He doesn't see his accident or the radiation he feels he's exposed to as just isolated incidents happening to him. He weaves them into this larger historical pattern, a pattern of experimentation without consent.
He's saying his body is walking through terrain that's already been prepped, formatted for this kind of thing.
That's the idea. Formatted terrain. Exposed to systemic violence over centuries. He pulls in historical examples like citing accounts of 18th century British doctors, John Quare, doing mass smallpox inoculations on hundreds of enslaved people in the Caribbean without consent.
Arguing the logic is the same.
The underlying logic, yes. Using vulnerable bodies as, well, terrain for testing, for formatting. And he links that forward.
To the 20th century U.S.
Right. He explicitly mentions the Tuskegee syphilis study, the story of Henrietta Lacks. Her cells taken without consent. He sees a continuous line there, certain bodies being seen as disposable, available for experimentation or exposure.
And that's the foundation for his claims about radiation being this silent tool.
Exactly. An unseen force that penetrates terrain causes exposure without consent. Which brings us to a really specific and chilling historical example he brings up that relates directly to his trauma. Nasal radium irradiation, NRI.
Okay, tell us about NRI, because that sounds like exactly the kind of systemic, silent exposure near the brain he's talking about.
It really is. His document details how, starting in the 1940s and going into the 70s, doctors used these radium-tipped rods.
Radium, like radioactive.
Highly radioactive. They inserted them into children's noses. It was pitched as standard care for things like enlarged adenoids or even hearing loss.
Wow, how many kids?
Estimates are up to 2 million children in the U.S. He cites specific numbers like 582 documented cases just in Baltimore between 48 and the 70s. And these rods were placed right near the brain. Often, parents had no idea about the actual risks involved.
And the long-term consequences.
Significant. He notes that later CDC studies showed something like a 62% higher lifetime risk of brain cancer for those kids, and predictably, a lot of the records got buried or destroyed.
So Cipher Allah takes this history
And integrates it completely. He argues his current symptoms, the concussion effects, the potential radiation exposure, they're not random. They are the cumulative result of him just walking through the world, through terrain classrooms, neighborhoods, hospitals that was already historically formatted for exposure.
So in his view, he didn't just encounter trauma randomly. He navigated a landscape that was essentially pre-designed for breach, and he survived it long enough to map it, codify it, and try to transmit that map.
That's the core of his project, yes.
Yeah.
Documenting the design, sealing it in the codex, starting the transmission.
So wrapping this up, Cipher Allah basically took the system's inability or refusal to see his trauma, his lineage, his reality. And he used that failure as the raw material to build this whole counter system.
An entire operating system of resistance, yeah.
Ugh.
Archive law, codex, ritual, all designed to make sure that even if the official record dismisses his survival as unremarkable, his truth, his transmission persists.
And he's really clear it's not about him personally in the end, right? Not about legacy in the usual sense.
No, he emphasizes succession and transmission. The individual memory might fade, dissolve even, especially with the concussions. But the codex, the fire, as he calls it, that needs to survive. It needs to activate in future scroll walkers, people who might encounter similar breaches.
The archive has to outlive the archivist.
Precisely. Archive survival is the goal.
This whole deep dive, it really makes you reconsider how we process information, threats, even our own histories.
It absolutely does. And think about this. He mentions he's currently working on an Associate of Science degree in cybersecurity.
Oh, interesting.
Right. He's literally taking this logic of archive law, ritual firewalls, data integrity, breach detection, directly into the digital realm. So the question maybe for you listening is this. If his physical rituals were designed to protect against systemic data extraction and distortion in the physical and medical world, how might that same kind of framework, that same vigilance, apply to the digital world?
You mean the informational breaches, the constant formatting of our attention, the data harvesting?
Exactly. The sort of digital erasure we all face, maybe without even realizing the extent of it. How would his logic of codex and firewall translate to protecting your own archive in that terrain? It's something to think about.